And just like that, it was Wednesday. I spent all of yesterday, hi gang, I spent all of yesterday thinking it was Thursday. And I'll tell you why, because I did 2 shows yesterday. And I'm not joking, I really did think it was Thursday yesterday. My first show was at Talk TV. And so I leave home at 2 a.m. and I get to the studios at 2:30ish. And then I'm on air with the great Petri Hoskin from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. And then I get home at about 4:30 a.m. And then I found that one of my dearest friends had died in Los Angeles. So I was writing about that. I was upset. And then I finished yesterday by doing BBC Radio London with Joe Good, which started at 11 p.m. and went on to midnight. And I actually thought, when your day is nearly 24 hours, I thought, oh my gosh, it's Thursday. But it isn't. It's all in one day. Barry J. Allen is saying, hello, how's the head? I'll be honest, not great. I have to keep it up because I have to keep it elevated. Yeah, it's been giving me some aggravation, shall we say. It's bloody, it's just aches and draws and throbs. Now, here's a nice reminder, everybody. And then I want to just talk about my friend briefly. And this is from Robert Van Muir. It says, hello, Russ and Neil. Thank God you sent the message. Thank God. We go live by satellite, thanks to Elon Musk, to which is in stationary orbit above New Malden, to bring you Neil Long, a man concentrating on doing his Wordle or whatever. Do you ever do?
I wasn't doing my Wordle. I put some twinkly lights up yesterday, and I might have put them near a bird's nest. And my friend just sent me a text to say, don't put the twinkly lights near the bird's nest. Of all the random things, that is what I was looking at when you brought me into the studio. True story.
Put twinkly. Why?
Because it might disturb their sleep patterns.
Who gives them monkeys? Who cares? They've got the whole world to sleep in. Who cares?
Yeah, but they're nice little tits, and they live in my back garden.
Yay!
But they are.
Okay. I'm not walking into that minefield. I've got now my neighbour, right? My neighbour, who's a pretty nice woman. We're not. I've lived here for, I think, it doesn't matter. It's another thing. I've never spoken to anybody here ever. So my neighbour put up a bird feeder. You know, one of those things, the plastic things full of seeds and all that crap.
Oh yeah.
And my terrace is just covered in bird shit, covered in it. So I have to keep power hosing. Try doing that with one hand to get rid of it. And it's the pigeons. I love every other bird. Pigeons, they're flying rats. They're rats with wings. We don't like them. And they're bloody nuisance. And they're so. Why do you like? What the hell?
I don't know.
If you're going to talk about pigeons, I'm going to bring on our first guest, and that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. You've upset me now. What I was going to say is, I've now got parakeets.
There's loads of parakeets.
Noisy little bastards, or what? David Wimble.
Yes, but very pretty.
They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. David Wimble, he of Deluxe Radio, and thank you and hello to everybody listening on Deluxe Radio right now. 70,000 of you taking this stream. Afternoon, chaps. Greetings from the GWR train, Paddington to Taunton. You're showing off now. That's the Wimble man. And from there, we must go up quickly to Fife in Scotland. Greetings, one and all, to Dave Sleet.
I'm sorry about your friend. I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, yeah, I'll talk about that in a sec. There we go. Right, let's bring her on. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Courtney.
Hello, Karen Courtney.
Hello there. How are you?
We're okay. We're okay.
Welcome to Men's Radio.
My 25th coffee. Karen, the first thing we need to discuss, and it's an important issue, short curtains. Do they ever work, or should they always be full length?
Full length.
Okay. Bold. It's a bold decision, Karen. I'll give you that. It's a bold decision.
It was.
The great thing about this show, Karen, is that we get to see into everybody's homes. Ever since we closed the
those behind me are short. Sorry, those are short.
But that was my gag. That was the whole gag.
They're long.
I can see that.
Well, this is what I noticed. I noticed a juxtaposition of long and short curtains. So I did wonder how you were going to respond there, Karen. I know it's a very random way to be brought into a radio show, but I thought you handled it admirably.
If this
Thank
was
you.
Radio 4 on the Today program, Prime Minister, I'm sorry, Prime Minister, I must push you on this point. Short curtains or long, which do you think are better for the country? That's how it works. Just a variation. So, Kaza, why are you here?
Well, I'm here, Russ, to talk about men who are victims of abuse, and specifically a type of abuse which is called narcissistic abuse.
Oh, yes.
And
I
yeah.
have read quite a lot about this, and I'm going to be fascinated to hear
Yeah,
what
I've
you're
been
going to
very
say.
excited about you. In all seriousness, I've been very excited about you coming on because this is so damn important.
Well, it is. It really is. And it's been a very interesting journey for me because I started the women's group about 5 years ago. And it just grew and grew and grew. And basically, people were saying, what about men? Men suffer from narcissistic abuse. And of course, this is correct. They do.
What's the name of the women's group, Karen?
The group is Surviving the Narcissistic Ex-Partner Closed Group for Women. And the men's group is called Surviving the Ex-Narcissistic Partner Closed Group for Men.
Any calls from Hollywood yet?
Few. Yeah, so basically I started the men's group a couple of years ago, and we have 500 men in there, and they chat every day, and it's an amazing support group. And a lot of the guys in there have said that the group has really helped them immensely, and we get some specialists coming in from time to time. We're getting a solicitor coming in who has had experience of narcissistic abuse and working with clients who have been victims of this type of abuse, and she will be doing like a free surgery in there. Excellent. And so we try and offer this sort of thing as well, but it's a very active
suggestion. Can I make another suggestion, because I think this is so key? And much overlooked. Just to mark your card, by the way, Karen, 50% of our audience are women. So if you think it's 100% men listening, it ain't.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I started my own Facebook group a very few years ago called the Espresso Bar. About 1,000 blokes on it, and it's men only. If you give me your details, I will put that all up on the Espresso Bar so they can reach out and be part of your group as well. Absolutely, our pleasure.
That would be brilliant. We'll give out the information to both the male and female groups.
Yeah, perfect. And we put that up on women's radios as well.
Brilliant. And
I've also got a contact. I've actually got 2 contacts that would be very helpful to you, with a lot of eyeballs on screens, as it were. So I'll tell you about those towards the end of the interview, but I'll be happy to put you in that direction as well, Karen.
Fabulous. Prior to lockdown, we were putting conferences on around the UK. We had one at the police headquarters in England and Wales, and then one in Newcastle, Birmingham, Manchester. And what we did, we pulled in some of the best experts in the world, like Dr. Sam Vaknin, Kim Sayed, Melanie Tonia Evans, and they all spoke live. It was great. So hoping later on in the year to do this again, this time for both the groups, men and the women's groups.
Yeah.
So
how prevalent is it, Karen?
Incredibly. And statistics show that the number of narcissists is running at between 5 to 7%. So out of every 100 people, you get between 5 and 7.
So tell me this. Tell me this. It's a phrase we look. We just had 7 weeks of this in Virginia. If you ever needed a better demonstration of someone who's a complete narcissist, boom, you just watch the hours of the trial. What are the symptoms that our viewers and our listeners should watch out for?
Delusions of grandeur.
Yes. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Incredibly sensitive to any kind of criticism, even if very innocently delivered and trying to be of help to that person.
Absolutely.
Say that.
Tick.
Explain that one, Karen, because Longy slightly lost me there. Go on. I get the first one, obviously, delusion of grandeur. What's the second one?
Well, the second one is, well, you said the first one. The second one can be someone who just thinks they're this all-important person. They're better than everybody else.
Oh, God.
Everybody doesn't measure up to them.
Right.
People, they basically get their feed from people, so that they're pretty empty vessels inside. So in order for them to function, they need people around them who are very empathic. They are not themselves. They show no empathy whatsoever.
Are they sociopaths?
There
Not
are
always.
7 different types of narcissists, and the vindictive narcissist is more akin to that sort of personality trait as well. I mean,
it would be a bit like me saying, "Oh, Russ, I've got a really good idea for the show. Why don't we have this person on?" And you reacting and going, "Who are you to tell me? This is my effing radio
You've
station."
recorded our conversations, haven't you, Neil?
You know what's wrong with what I do?
It's horrendous. It's horrendous. And working with these people, let alone being married on the relations, but trying to work, and then right back to you, Karen, it is awful, because it's like, if they didn't come up with the idea, it's never going to fly. So if they came up with it, it's genius. Anybody else in the office, company, factory came up with it, it's crap. It's ghastly, which is why I was so keen to have you on the show.
It's actually, and during lockdown, abuse levels surged between 25 to 35%.
You betcha.
And it was just like an epidemic of it.
But what does it tell you about the way we live as people? Because I think so many people are on the edge. So many people have this little sort of scintilla of niceness, and underneath they're just bloody awful people. And then suddenly they found themselves locked together in the same house, flat, bungalow, caravan, whatever it was, whereas they're used to one or both of them going out to work, and they only have to, have dinner and then watch TV, and they don't have to talk. Suddenly, oh my God, we're in like 24 hours a day prison.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very close friend, and she's a solicitor, and she said that within a few weeks of lockdown, she had never been so busy.
I bet.
Divorce, separation.
Yeah.
People were getting on top of each other, and you go to work, you might not see your partner, but if there's a tendency for one person in a relationship to be the perpetrator and one person to be the victim, there is no escape. And
so I've got 2 big questions for you, Karen. First is coming in first, and then Neil's got tons. Now, the first question is coming in from Manhattan, New York, because this is an international show, which we love. This is from Elizabeth Green, who is a regular. And Elizabeth says, what creates someone being a narcissist?
Well, basically, a narcissist is someone who will use another person for their own benefit. So what actually makes a narcissist, there's a few schools of thought here. Some people say that it's something that happens during childhood as a result of trauma, as a result of even child abuse as well. But what makes a narcissist is basically, as they grow and develop as people, they basically feel, and they really do believe, that they are superior to everybody else. Everyone owes them, and that basically they will get out of a person as much as they can. They're basically very empty vessels inside.
But they're like vampires, really, in some
yes,
ways.
they are. They're emotional vampires. They can only aspire. They can only aspire. They see someone with empathy and kindness and love, and they can only aspire to be like that, but they never will.
See, I have antennae which twitch very, very violently anybody I
Yeah.
think is what I call, as I use it in the book, an energy vampire. In other words, you're coming along, you're a negative person, you're sucking out my energy, and I don't need you in my life. You have nothing to add to it. Go away. And I've learned years ago to absolutely, completely.
But I would call that self-care. I mean, it becomes a bit tricky, I suppose, Karen, doesn't it? When, or perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps you can untrickify it for the listeners, and it would certainly be of value to me as well, because I could be quite empathetic, and that's why they say that narcissists attract empathetic people. So it's always these people that are just lovely and giving, and then they get sucked in and drained until they're dry, and then end up thinking something was wrong with them.
Yeah.
And it isn't you,
lose
it is
empathy for
them.
themselves. And even if what I was going to say was, even if it was some sort of terrible wound or something terrible that happened to them in childhood, you still don't have to be around them. Yes, they need help, but it's the rare narcissist that goes, oh, I think I'm a bit of a narcissist, I'm going to get help. But until that happens, no one can really help them, can they?
And the other thing, sorry to jump in, I just wanted to say one thing quickly. Why do you have to let that event absolutely define you as who you are? I think the Americans are very, oh, somebody stole my bike when I was 7, and then they grow up and be a raving lunatic. Sorry, it just doesn't wash. We all have choices. We have choices.
You've got so much to say, Karen, and I want to hear it all.
Well,
so I'm going to zip it for a bit.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a B cluster personality, and it's one of the personalities that there is virtually no cure for. The cure rate, there is, it's virtually non-existent, the cure rate. They can slowly become aware of it, but the problem is the process of doing this can take anywhere between 5 and 10 years. And the reason this happens is because a narcissist will not recognize, they will not accept that the problem is with them.
Exactly.
The problem
it's
is
always someone else's fault.
So it's somebody else.
It's always everybody else.
Somebody else.
And so you might get the situation where, and I'll talk about the phase, the different cycles that you go through in a narcissistic relationship. You might get they don't want to lose their feed, and the person who's a victim might put the foot down and say, I'm leaving you unless you get counselling. And it's normally right near the end of the relationship where there's been devaluation, the discard is not too far away, and so the narcissist wants to keep their fees. So what will happen normally, and I've seen this many times, is that the narcissist, she or he, might go to have some form of therapy, and they will do it just long enough to hook and hoover that person back into the relationship, but they have no real intention of carrying on with the therapy, and they're probably sitting in the therapy thinking there's nothing wrong with me, I don't need to do this, and at
So
the
does the
earliest
therapy
possible moment they will finish.
not work? You see, this is the interesting thing. If most people go to
there is a form of therapy by Dr. Sam Vaknin called cold therapy, which is pretty new therapy, which is having a slightly higher success rate, but it is so small at the moment that there's so many experts around who will argue about this, but most will agree that with a narcissist there is no particular cure, because it's very hard for a narcissist to change. Once a narcissist is set in their way, why would they change? Life is too good for them. They get what they want. They suck out of people what they want. And if it doesn't work out, they can simply carry on and go to the next person and say to themselves, this is not me, this is that person. Because actually, when a relationship starts with a narcissist, what's one of the first things they do? They turn around and said that they had recently left a relationship, and the other person, they could even say, was abusive, or they were a psycho, but it's never their fault.
What's the difference between taking people a little bit for granted and being a full-on narcissist, which is so destructive? Because I think we all do that a little bit.
Well, it's patterns of behavior. I mean, if you were to imagine sort of normal, emotionally healthy person with their emotions, you get a nice gradual line with their emotions going up and down. You know, they might have highs and lows, but the lines are smooth like a hill. With a narcissist, you will get a line, straight line, and then nothing, and then a straight line, and then nothing, and a straight line, and nothing. So someone who is sort of a bit selfish, you they might recognize that their behavior is, you know, they are to blame. They will apologize, they will say sorry, they will mean it, and you will see an improvement in the behavior. A narcissist will not improve. However, they will make you believe that, first of all, this is your fault, not theirs. They will never improve. They will gaslight you. I will go through what all this means in a bit. They will get you trauma bonded to them. You don't know which way you're going because your mind's all over the place. You think you're losing your mind. There are so many facets to it. So in actual fact, a person who
The
is
effect it has
a
on
little
the
bit
victim
selfish, basically the relationship will carry on more, you know, smoothly. Whereas with a narcissist, you really start to become unhinged and you think you're losing yourself. You do lose yourself. You totally lose yourself as a personality. The person you start off with, a narcissist, is not the person you end up with. You lose yourself, you don't recognize. And this is because a narcissist is empty. A narcissist has no real personality. They suck the personality out of that person. They mimic.
So Karen, here is the $1 million question, which is coming in from Melanie Hutchins. How do you deal with these kind of people? I have to read it out, by the way, because on Deluxe Radio, in case you just think I'm doing it because people can't read, Deluxe Radio is just radio. They can't see us, therefore they don't see any of the captions that we generate. So how do you deal with these kind of people is the question from Melanie Hutchins.
Right. Looking at it regarding relationships, it's normally a very long journey. Now, this journey could last somewhere between 6 months to 17 or 18 years. It depends how much of a feed the narcissist wants from you. It depends how important you are to the narcissist. If the narcissist can manipulate you and say you're in business with them, they can manipulate you and get out what you want, what they want from you. It depends how useful you are to the narcissist. However, there'll come a stage when they discard you, when you're no longer important to you. And so normally when it comes to the discard, you're starting to realize that everything is not right. And at this point, you start to say to yourself, how can I leave this person? What can I do? How do you stop, you know, being with a narcissist? So I think the question was, you know, what do you do regarding a narcissist? How can you stay away? Well, first of all, in the work situation, you will be able to see probably a bit more clearly than being in a relationship with someone who a narcissist is. And so straight away, you're going to be in a work situation and you're having a terrible time. You've got this boss who has a huge ego. Everything is your fault. They're being a bully. They're being nasty.
Sound familiar, Russ?
Indeed. Interesting you say that, Neil.
And so basically, the way to get through this is to basically get help, go and see your superiors, and if that doesn't work,
if that's your boss,
get them out your life.
You see, this is where I take slight not umbrage, disagreement. If you're in a situation, Neil and I have known each other for we've only started working together. Neil just joined us quite relatively recently. We've known each other for 30 plus years and we worked together somewhere else. And when the boss displays everything that you've just said, all right, you don't have anywhere to go. Forget HR. I'm sorry. I just do not. HR is there. I know this is controversial. HR is there to protect the company. and it does everything it can to protect the
close ranks.
company. I don't think it gives a monkey about you. They pretend to. They play lip service to it. I've been to so many lectures about it. I don't believe a word of it. Sorry, I don't.
Can I offer something here, Karen? Because it's just
sure.
my thoughts on this, because it's something have I encountered it? Well, yeah, kind of. It's really, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and if I'm right, it'll validate or help to answer Melanie's question as well. It basically love yourself and set boundaries. Put bluntly, just learn not to be put in that situation again. Learn the art of no, and perhaps not be quite so overgiving and kind to people, but obviously be a kind person if you're a kind person, but not at the expense of yourself. I suppose that's where the boundaries come in.
Absolutely.
That would be for future proofing. Unfortunately, you can't do anything about it once you're in it. Once you've healed from that experience, it's a good future proofer. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the traps that people fall in, they just some people seem to be going from one narcissistic relationship to another, and sometimes that can happen in the workplace. So you have to get to the stage where you become aware of what is going on, and a lot of the time it's only truly through education and knowledge that you realize what narcissistic abuse is about. Sometimes you can be in the work situation, you just don't understand what's going on. You don't know about narcissistic abuse. In those situations, there are plenty of these where you can go to HR and the support is not there. They don't understand narcissistic abuse. And in those situations, sometimes your own mental health can really suffer.
Yeah.
So you have to collect evidence. You have to collect as much evidence as you can, because if you have to leave because of your mental health deteriorating, it can be seen as constructive dismissal. And by having as much evidence as you can amass, then that can certainly help you. It's certainly one thing that we say to anyone who's being abused by a narcissist in any type of relationship. Evidence collecting is absolutely vital. You can't always do it if there's no physical evidence, but by keeping a diary and writing a very comprehensive diary, sometimes this can be used.
Absolutely.
If it does go to a court.
Karen, can I jump? I want to jump
Yeah.
in here. This is
Sure.
for business rather than for personal,
Yeah.
but in business, keep an email trail. Keep
Absolutely.
an absolute email trail of anything and everything. And B, as Karen rightly says, keep a diary. If you can't keep a diary, keep comprehensive notes. Get yourself a separate notepad if you want to write it down. If you don't trust the laptop, you just want to go non-digital. Great idea in case you get hacked or whatever. And write everything down, everything that was said, and write it at the time. Don't allow your memory to start embellishing it and embossing it. Write it down the moment it's happened, date, time, everything, and it's there. It's very important to do that.
Absolutely. And I mean, in a relationship with a narcissist, it's absolutely vital to do
Just
this.
being backed up by David Wimble. My experience of this was someone who was my boss on a cruise ship. She would lie because she saw me as a threat. I kept a diary of everything, and then happy ending. Eventually she got sacked. Good.
Well done, David. Yeah,
good.
Well done.
That's good.
Yes.
Now, I just want to clarify something from Dave Sleep, who's very high up in the psychotherapeutic community with his company ANA. Misuse of the N-word. By the N-word, he means narcissist, by the way, in case you thought something else. Is often the first line of defense by a true narcissist, as was shown in recent times. Absolutely. No self-awareness at all. None. No self-awareness. It's everybody else.
Yeah, I suppose it's an inverse correlation. The more self-aware, or the more that someone truly loves themselves, the less narcissistic they're going to be, I suppose.
Yeah.
As long as they love themselves in a healthy way, not in that grandiose narcissistic way.
Yeah, I mean, we're all.
I'm talking about healthy self-love, not grandiose narcissistic self-love.
We're all slightly narcissistic. We're all very slightly narcissistic. I mean, that's recognized. The thing about
that's just having an ego, though, isn't it? I mean, that's not. I heard the term positive narcissist once, but the way they were defining that, I didn't really like the term, because what they really meant was someone that was self-realized and went after their own goals, but respected other people at the same time, but was very true to themselves. But I probably wouldn't have called that a narcissist. That was just a term.
Maybe that's someone who's
was
just
bandied around
focused
for a
and
bit.
determined.
Narcissists can be very charismatic.
Yes.
They can be, because there are so many different types of narcissists, I'll sum it up. Everyone can love them. They can be everyone's best friend. They seem to want to do everything, help everybody. And of course, it is all a mask that they're wearing, because often what happens is, behind closed doors, they are Jekyll and Hyde characters. So behind a closed door, they could be a completely different person.
Oh,
Do you want to sum up? Will you sum up these different types of narcissists for the benefit?
Yeah, I'll just go through so that I don't miss.
While you're doing that,
any of
here's
them.
another question coming in from Manhattan.
Okay.
So good they named it twice. Is it normal to want to excuse them or even slightly defend? Yeah, because standing on the outside, you just
yes,
think
because you're being because when you're with a narcissist, there is so much self-doubt, there is so much gaslighting, there is so much trauma bonding. You can actually have so much love for a narcissist, because basically you have fabulous times, especially at the beginning with the love bombing. You can have these amazing, fabulous times with a narcissist that are so incredible that they almost last the 20 years, because all you want is to go back to those times. But when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, and it's the same with a narcissistic person you're working with, there will be times when they're absolutely delightful and lovely, and you start to question yourself, and the whole cycle starts again, and then the horrible side suddenly shows. And so those nice times get you hooked in,
and that's why it's hard to leave, right?
It's hard to leave, but you can also be defending the narcissist as well, because you are gaslighted, trauma bonded, codependent, where you give so much of yourself to the narcissist. It's a very, very complex scenario. Now,
Can you just explain trauma bonding?
I was once, Karen.
Yeah, trauma bonding. Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry, Karen. I just want to say one thing. I was once, years and years and years ago, a chap that I knew got married, and we went out for dinner, and the menus were brought round. I'm going back so long, and the menus and the wife put the menu back into the center of the table and said, "Oh, I don't need the menu. I let XYZ choose for me." And I thought, I'll give this marriage about 6 months. Wow. I'd never seen that before. I've never seen it since. It was absolutely like, I sat there, I was
very
shocked.
controlling.
I was shocked. I was like, what the hell? Never seen it before. Wow.
Thank you.
I have many times.
Trauma bonding.
Okay. Right. At the beginning of the relationship, I'll put it into a bit of a context. A narcissist will love bomb you. So you meet. I'll just do the beginning bit, and then we'll get to the trauma bonding, because then you get a better idea of what it actually is. So in the beginning of a relationship with a narcissist will be watching you very carefully. They've already noticed that you're a very empathic, caring person, which they can only aspire to be, but never will. So they love bomb you. And basically, you're incredible. Well, they're incredible. You, the victim, you think they're amazing. They're everything you ever wanted in a person. They contact you all the time. They're kind. They mirror you. So they're watching what you're saying and everything. And all of a sudden they'll be saying, "Oh, I love that book too. Oh God, yes, I love that film too. Yes, we're so similar." They're mirroring you. "Oh, we're so alike. Oh, you're my soulmate." And within weeks, what's the saying? Here it is. I love this one. Nobody falls in love faster than a narcissist who needs somewhere to live. I love that saying. So basically, if the narcissist is on hard times and they see that you're self-sufficient and everything, before you know it, the narcissist is living with you. But depending on the type of narcissist as well, they can give you the idea that they're going through a very difficult time. They've had a lot of disasters, not of their own making, and you can start to feel really sorry for them as well. They can even make out they're victims of abuse as well.
Oh,
So yeah,
you think?
so
You
basically,
think?
it's sort of the love bombing stage is you've met the princess you've always wanted, the prince you always wanted. They are everything you've ever wanted, possibly in a guy or a gal, and it's just wonderful. And you're having the best time of your life, and you're being taken to heights that you've never been taken to before in a previous relationship. It is tense, and it's if you're the victim, it's pretty amazing. And then what happens is then they're eventually when they've had their fill of you and things, you're not giving them quite as much, and there are a few incidents that show to them that you're pulling away a bit. Then what will happen, the cycling will start to happen, and the cycling will be where they're nice to you, then all of a sudden, bit by bit, they start to pick faults with you, and they're horrible, and nothing you can do is right, and
Or good enough.
no, good enough. And you're going down this cycle that's been really sort of, where they've been nice, it's going further and further down. Their actions are more and more selfish, aggressive. They're gaslighting you. Basically, you start to be in this situation where they're saying they're going to do X, Y, and Z for you. Then all of a sudden they deny that they've said it, and you're
Oh, I
starting
never
to
said
think,
that.
well,
Oh, that's a
yeah,
lovely
did they
phrase.
say
I
it?
love that.
The
I love
narcissist
that.
prayer is that didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad, and if it was, that's not a big deal, and if it is,
You're
that's not
overreacting.
my fault,
You're
and if it was,
overreacting.
I didn't mean it, and if I did, you deserved it. That's the narcissist
Jesus
prayer.
Christ.
So in
We've
other
got our
words,
next guest. I can see our next guest in the digital green room. Karen, do you want to stay? Have you got time? Can you stay? Or you
yes,
got to dash off?
I will stay. No,
This is
I
a
will stay. Your
completely
pleasure.
different subject, but
This is before we bring in the next guest.
Yeah.
You've got to come back, Karen. We could do a
Yeah,
whole
please.
show on this.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
much more because I've
And where
never
can
got
people?
to
And where can
explain what
people?
trauma bonding was, but basically, yeah.
No, you'll have time. You'll have time.
And where can people learn more about what you do and get in touch?
I've got a book list which I will can
Email me
people
the
mail
book.
it?
I'll tell you what to do. Karen, you got all
Yeah.
my details. Email me the book list, so see if we can get it up on the MRS website. But
Okay.
and then email me your details so we can let everybody know how to get hold of you. Right, let's bring on. It's fascinating.
Okay.
I had to make you disappear, but it was a great thing from Paul Claridge. I got out of the civil service after 25 years, partly because there were so many narcissists in management positions. At one point, my line manager and his line manager were both narcissists. Working under them both was utter hell, etc., etc. I mean, there we go. But of course, they tried to take each other down. Right, let's bring on Pete. Hello, Pete. How are you?
Hey, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me.
We are in the middle of really a horrendously addictively interesting and equally horrifying conversation about narcissism, and now we're going to have to do a complete jolt, which is my fault because I didn't realize we could talk about this for so long. But we're going to get Karen back in a later date. So Pete, tell us all about yourself and why you're here.
Oh, hey, guys. So my name's Pete. I'm part of an Australian band called President Street over in England at the moment on tour, and on here sort of I think a little bit the guys wanted to understand a little bit of my backstory and how I got to here. It's interesting, Karen, listening to your conversation about narcissism. I think if you're in the music industry, narcissism can
The
often
worst.
go together.
The worst, the most disgusting, no disrespect to you, the most disgusting, revolting industry I've ever had the misfortune to have anything to do with. Worst mistake of my entire life.
That's encouraging. Thanks, Russ.
Populated by, it's a sewer and populated, I'm talking about so many people who are egomaniacs and talentless and just crooks. Horrible. Don't let your kids go into it. Seriously, don't. It's awful.
Yeah, too late for me. Too late for me. I'm already in it.
No, I get that. I'm not talking about particularly about the artists. I mean, some are great and some are vile, but the rest of it is just a sewer. As I wrote yesterday.
It's a very interesting space, that's for sure. There's a lot of interesting people who want to jump in for their own particular reasons, and art and connectivity and a voice isn't always a part of that process, that's for sure.
But you know what, Pete? I'm starting to take it back into mental health, and Karen will get this. You've used the phrase a lot of very interesting. They're not interesting at all. They're horrible, but they're not actually interesting people. They're really just awful people who just want to make a lot of money, and they don't care how they do it, who they destroy, who they stab in the back. There was a huge post from somebody I respect in fact, 2 in the last 24 hours from people I respect greatly. I'm not going to say who they are, who are very, very well known in the music industry. And even at their advanced senior level and great respect around the world, have been trashed, and they're both reeling from it, and they're very experienced. I mean, it is a nightmare. It's not for the unwary. So you came over from Australia, and
okay. So the guys wanted me to talk to you a little bit about my backstory.
Yeah,
I thought you might find that interesting. I suppose from a mental health conversation and sort of life journey conversation was what the guys thought I would probably.
Yes, that's what we wanted, because we don't play music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I suppose a little bit, it does tie in a little bit with the concept of why people do what they do. But anyway, I suppose, so just telling my backstory. So my parents are from India. They're from a place called Bangalore. So my family's sort of half Indian, half English, so to speak. And a lot of them left, after the British left India, etc. As look around England, you see just as many as well. As many of us. Anyway, so my parents landed in Australia with 4 kids, and then I was born. I was the fifth and the youngest of 5 children born. My mum's family was very musical. My mum used to sing on radio, and they're all classically trained. Her and all her brothers and sisters were all classically trained, sang, played, and sorry, I just turn my mail off so I stop getting interruptions. And yeah, so they came to Australia. I was born. Like I said, my mum's family is very musical. Unfortunately, before I turned 2, my mum and 3 of my brothers and sisters were hit by a car and killed.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So at that point, that left me. I was the youngest of 5. My sister, who's the oldest of 5, she's 8 years older than me, and my dad. And so I sort of grew up. I don't remember my mum, and I never obviously had any of the teachings that I probably would have got had my mum survived. And then when I was 13, my dad died of a brain tumour, again, very suddenly. So that basically, that left me orphaned. But I had my old sister. I was 13. My sister was 21. At that point, we're in Perth in President Street, which is the name of my band. So all of this stuff happened when I was living in President Street. And our band is called President Street because of that. It's sort of the circle of life. Anyway, so at that point, I was like 13. I'll never forget this. The day, so my dad he basically played bridge very, very competitively, and he always had headaches, but he always put it down to sinuses. He basically kind of passed out at the bridge table. One of his partners is a doctor. They rushed him to hospital. Turns out he's got a massive brain tumor, and a week later, he's gone. Dear God. So there was no preparation or anything for this, and no planning. And I'll never forget this, the day that we had to turn Dad's life support off. My sister took me came, picked me up, took me for coffee, for breakfast or whatever. And she said, look, today we're going to turn Dad's life support off. And so this is just you and me now. And there's something you need to understand. The only thing you're ever going to have in this life is what you make for yourself. There's no safety net. As many people know, when people left India, there was no capacity to bring anything other than like $50 in their pocket, sort of thing. So there was nothing. We were dead broke. We were 13, she's 21. You know, and that thing stuck with me so strongly, which is the only thing I'm ever going to have in my life is what I make for myself. There's nowhere to turn. There's no, if you know, there's nowhere to go. If I hit rock bottom, I have to hold myself up. So look, I got a sort of quasi scholarship to a Catholic school. Did very well. Got into university, did a law degree, put myself through uni, working many jobs and some government support along the way. But honestly, I suppose if I look back at it now, I was probably pretty close to clinical depression. I sort of spent 15, 18 hours a day, you know, either in bed or on the couch, sort of thing. And yeah, got myself together in a way, I suppose. And yeah, it was sort of later in life, you know, I was sort of in my 20s that I was actually in Hong Kong. I was working in Hong Kong as a lawyer. And I went into a bar, a Mexican restaurant actually, and they had a Latin band playing. And I jumped up on stage and started just playing some percussion, playing some congas and stuff. And, you know, I'd had quite a few drinks and got on stage playing congas, just a bit of a drunken idiot. But at the end, the drummer came to me at the end of the night and said, "Look, mate, where are you gigging around town? Because I can get you some gigs." And I was like, "Well, I've never played an instrument in my life. This is the first time I've ever touched a musical instrument." And he's like, "Well, mate, you should probably think about this." And he put me in touch with this amazing 70-year-old Filipino guy named Miguel Salvarog. And he taught me a few little licks on the congas. And then I started gigging, and then I realized my real passion was the creative side of it and the songwriting, and started that process. And I had never had a music lesson, still to this day, I've never had a music lesson, and then realized I wanted to record. So went out and sort of, you know, taught myself how to play some keyboards and some guitar, learn how to use the Logic Pro software, or Pro Tools now I use, you know, and started from there. And, you know, music and President Street's where we're at. And we're on tour at the moment with Roachford, you know, the amazing.
Oh yeah, sure, Roachford, yes.
Yeah, so we're on the Roachford.
Because I had a load, because Pete, I had a load of emails and stuff, promotional material. God knows why, me of all people, about Roachford and being back on the road and everything like that. I think we're Facebook friends or so. I don't think we've ever met. So bravo you. What's the lineup of President Street, and what sort of music you play?
We're pop. We're sort of pop music. I think the press over here call us, what do they call us? Pop fusion. Pop fusion. So yeah, look, I suppose growing up,
that means.
Well, we don't really write to genre. We don't try and write like Radio 1 style or whatever. We just write music.
God. Oh, you mean you're proper musicians then?
Well, thank you. I'll take that. Yeah, so when we write, we go, okay, what's the emotion of the song we're trying to bring out? And then what's the best way to bring it out? Do we go electronic? Do we go sort of fuzzy guitar, rock and roll? Do we strip it back and go acoustic? You know, we take it in the direction that we think the song should go in order to find its true emotion and to play to that chord. Pete,
let's come away from the music, which is all well and good, and we wish you all the best on it. How long's the tour, by the way, while you're here?
We've been on it for a couple of weeks, and we're finishing up on Thursday.
Okay. And you've enjoyed it?
It's been great. We played O2 Shepherd's Bush on Friday. That's an amazing venue.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? That's
O2
good.
Ritz in Manchester. So absolutely iconic, amazing venues. And, you know, honestly.
Good for you. Now, I think the question on everybody's mind, your story is so genuinely tragic. You know, I'll be quite honest with you, I started to well up a little bit there, and I've never met you before. It's awful. How did you find the inner strength to not just carry on, but to thrive?
Interesting. I've had quite a few. In fact, parents of my friends have said to me, and where I grew up, by the way, President Street, Cudale, is a very, very, it's basically under the airport in Perth. It was a very, very rough area. There's a lot of bad stuff happening, and a lot of people didn't find their way out. So, and parents of friends of mine saying to me, I don't know why you didn't, for whatever reason, fall down that rabbit hole that so many people around you did. Many people I went to school with, actually, I think 6 or 7 were murdered because they joined the bikies, and many people ended up just never getting out of the rabbit hole, so to speak.
But you didn't let it define you, did you? That's what's fantastic.
Well, I suppose I always had in back in my head, my dad, they came from India, they sacrificed a lot to be there. They gave up their life in India, and, Dad always had this thing that there was no question, but I was going to go to uni and I was going to, work as hard as I could. And I think, to be honest with you, so my dad was one of 10 kids, my mum was one of 6. So I have a big extended family, but obviously a completely devastated immediate family. And I think, lucky enough, quite a few ended up in Perth. So there was a little bit of a sort of arm around, and my family was very much unconditional love. So it's like, we love you for who you are, and you are enough, and all that sort of stuff. Now, I think if I really look down, maybe just I have a lot of cousins of similar age, and we were like brothers. And so I do wonder if that's sort of just that sense of strength of the family sort of, for whatever reason, didn't let
you fall.
Yeah, there were years when I was at uni when I was pretty sad and broken. And by the way, my sister moved to Melbourne when I was 17 or 18. So her husband got a job in Melbourne. So at that point, and Perth is pretty isolated. It's like a 4-hour flight to anywhere. You can't drive anywhere really. And so I had a very few years then, because I was completely isolated at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
You see,
I just never did.
Pete, what fascinates me, and you are like a shining beacon of hope.
Yeah.
And I mean that genuinely, is something that Karen touched upon. And it's something we talk about a lot on Men's Radio Station, is that people bang on about stuff that happened in the past when it's not always that traumatic. I mean, compared to you, it's like having a paper cut, and they let it define them, and they use it not just as a crutch, but as a huge excuse to behave in the most horrible manner. And Karen's talked about this earlier in the show. And there you are, going through what could only be described as a compendium of nightmares. And look at you. You don't let that define you. And it's not just rare, but it's wonderful. It's like a breath of fresh air. And I think it gives the lie. It gives the lie to all those people. And it's I'm sorry about to our American viewers, but it is a very American thing that they always rely on it. And you use it as defense in court or defense. It's dreadful. And Pete is the living, walking example of, no, you have a choice. He could have joined a gang. He could have been shot like 6 or 7 of his classmates.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
It's very, very truly inspiring, Pete, I have to say.
Yeah, totally. Isn't it amazing?
Particularly given the conversation that we had with Karen earlier on. It is easy to believe that you're a victim. I must admit, I've been through times believing that I'm a victim of circumstance, and what I went through was nowhere near as bad as yours, nowhere near. And it can be a hard mindset to escape. So the fact that you didn't have that mindset just shows that you're really doing something right, and people could learn a hell of a lot, because a victim is not a fun place to be. It feels like, well, being a victim, it doesn't feel like a good place to be. It's either it's victim or creator, isn't it? You're either creating your life or you're a victim of life.
I think in some cases, I'm going to get shouted at for this, I know. But I think sometimes it's quite a comfortable place or a familiar place for people to go to. It's their place of choice. I'm a victim, and therefore everything else in their life they can rationalize because they're a victim.
So my dad was very proud. He was a very proud man.
Yeah.
And one thing, I suppose, which obviously imparted onto my sister, which she then imparted onto me, is that there is no one to bail you out. Now, technically, there probably is. There probably is a government service that could have bailed me out, so to speak, if I had failed. But my dad was a very proud man, and it just never occurred to me to rely on anyone else in my life. And I don't know if that's just a teaching or if that's in a fire in my belly or
whatever
what
it is. It works. I mean, because that just tells me that for whatever reason, you have incredible self-belief. And
yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, self-belief.
And if there is a brilliant definition of resilience, you are it.
You're it.
And that's why Russ quite rightly says you're a shining beacon. Well done, sir. I mean, well done.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, guys. I suppose the other thing I would say too is that the decision to do music with no musical training, no background, no connections, no lessons, was an interesting thing. And if I look back now, it was pretty bloody stupid, probably, in the sense that I was just lining myself up to fail. But I suppose having lived through what I lived, it was like, why the hell not? Because bad shit happens all the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse my
No,
language.
it's fine. No, don't worry. It's fine.
You're very positive. Yeah.
Well,
you're a
bad
very
stuff happens
positive
all the
person.
time. Yes, yeah. And why not have a go? Because at the end of the day, if I don't have the conviction to do it, no one will. And
that's why it comes full circle. You've kind of, in a delicious way, full circled yourself. It comes back to self-belief. And I suppose if you think you can survive that, then would it really matter if you failed at this, in a sense? And that comes back to self-belief. But you'd be surprised how many people don't take that step because of the fear of failure. So if for some reason your fear of failure, given your past history, was low and your self-belief was high, it all makes complete sense, doesn't
But
it?
interestingly, your self-belief is not delusional. I mean, I've come across so many people, especially in the music, when I made the huge stupid mistake of forming a management company for several years. Their self-belief was completely delusional. It was ridiculous. But
that was something I was very
based on reality.
About.
You are authentic, Pete.
Thank you, mate. Yeah. And look, I'm very, very, very proud of my musical partner Ruby is extremely talented, and for me, the people who have come on the journey with me through President Street is the most extraordinary thing, because people who have committed their lives to this project, is very humbling, and I take it extremely seriously that, we have genuine obligations. But one of the main things for me was I didn't want to be fooling myself. I don't have the need to feel whatever it is, this sense of I don't need a false sense of you're cool or you're this. I just wanted it to be genuine, because I'm not doing it well, maybe I am, but I don't like to think I'm doing it for ego. I'm doing it because I genuinely have things I want to say, and whatever it is. I think if you speak to musicians or songwriters, I'll tell you it's not really a choice. And so the name of our first EP was Involuntary Actions, because I felt doing music was an involuntary action for me, because it was a dumb decision. The likelihood of me succeeding is very, very low, given I wasn't a 15-year-old kid starting on YouTube playing guitar and singing and stuff. But for whatever reason, it just became the most important thing.
But what is that saying? Whatever your dream is, start small. Boldness has a certain magic in it, or something like that. I don't know who said that, but you epitomise that as well. That if you just do take a step in a direction, something will come out of that. And I suppose another way of looking at it as well, which is helpful, is there really isn't any failure, only feedback. And in a sense, then no matter what happens, you'll get a result, and you either win or you learn. And that kind of I find that useful if people have a big fear of failure and I'm talking to them about it. I say, well, there's no shame here. It's no failure. It's just feedback. It didn't work. Okay, so what works? Next.
That's right. And the other thing too is I suppose reasonably appropriate steps. So the first thing I did was I didn't immediately stop working. Is I spent every non-working minute in my studio at home on my computer. And over the course of a few years, I wrote a bunch of songs, and then I played and then I brought a couple of friends in to sing. I sing terribly, unfortunately. My mum used to sing on radio, but I sing like a cat on heat. So I brought in a couple of friends, put in some demos.
Pete,
and
we've
then
got so much more to talk about. We've completely run out of time. Two sensational guests. No, please. It's
Russ,
when you've got
very
such
quickly.
Yep.
Very quickly, because it really ties into today's show. On the show on Friday, we're going to be talking to two wonderful people. And Karen, if you can tune in, you will love this. We've got someone on called Helen
jump on again if you want. And so can you, Pete.
Would you like to jump on again on Friday?
I'll
Fantastic.
jump on again. Yeah.
Pete,
Perfect. We've got Helen
back,
Snape that survived a narcissistic relationship, and she's now a reformed people pleaser and teaches people how to do exactly that. And a lady that does emotional freedom technique, which is
join us on Friday. We're bang out of time. Both of you have been life enhancing. Thank you both so much. We'll be back.
Sure.
Neil and I, Friday, 12 o'clock. We're way out of time. Take care.
All the best. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Guys.
Amazing.